The Assembly will now come to order. The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Backus. Assemblywoman Bilbray-Axelrod. Assemblywoman Brown-Main. Assemblyman Carter. Assemblywoman Cohen. Assemblywoman Considine. Assemblyman DeLong. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblyman De Silva. Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblywoman Gallant. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Assemblywoman Gorlo. Assemblyman Gray. Assemblyman Gurr. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblywoman Hanson. Assemblywoman Hardy. Assemblyman Hibbets. Assemblywoman Howdigi. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblyman Koenig. Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch. Assemblywoman Marzola. Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblywoman Brittany Miller. Assemblyman C.H. Miller. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Assemblywoman Mosca. Assemblywoman Newby. Assemblyman Wynn. Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblyman Ortlicker. Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Assemblywoman Taylor. Assemblywoman Thomas. Assemblywoman Torres. Assemblyman Watts. Assemblyman Urick. Speaker Yeager.
Here. Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May the record reflect all members are present.
The record shall so reflect. We have 42 members present. That means we do have a quorum. Would members of the Assembly and guests please rise? We have the prayer this afternoon by Captain Emmanuel Beeson from the Salvation Army here in Carson City.
Good morning. Please pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today with humbled hearts, seeking your guidance and wisdom for the members of today's State Assembly. We ask that you grant them clarity of mind and courage of heart to make decisions that are the best interest for the people we serve. May they be guarded by fairness, justice, compassion, and may they always strive to uphold the values of our great state. We ask that you bless them with the strength and perseverance to tackle the challenges that lie ahead of them and to work together towards a brighter future for all. We offer this prayer in gratitude for their service and in faith that together we can build a better tomorrow. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order business 2, reading and approval of the journal.
Carson City, Tuesday, May 23rd.
Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to end with the reading of the journal and allow the Speaker and Chief Clerk to make any necessary corrections and additions.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Members, we're going to go now to order of business 15, remarks from the floor. We have quite a lot of business in front of us, so we'll give members an opportunity to introduce our guests, and then we'll take a brief recess for those guests to leave the floor if they wish. Certainly you're welcome to stay with us for a couple of hours if you would like. So with that, order of business 15, we'll start with Assemblywoman Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I'm honored to have some of my sorority sisters from Kappa Delta Chi on the Assembly floor today, and I'm going to ask you all to please rise. Kitty Chi was founded on April 6, 1987, and we are a national intercollegiate Latina sorority who aims to achieve professional development, academic excellence, and a graduation of all of its members, an organization that's dedicated to community service with an emphasis on the Latino population. As our motto says, leading with integrity and united through service. Through numerous service events, sisterhood retreats, and academic and cultural workshops, Kitty Chi sprout into impacting leaders and helping guide the next generation to success. Kitty Chi is Latina founded, but multiculturally grown, just like the state of Nevada. The Kitty Chi Reno chapter, the Alpha Eta chapter, of which I am a member, was founded on December 19, 2004. And from the University of Nevada, Reno, we are excited to welcome Daniela Hernandez, Jacqueline Moreno Rojas, Melanie Holman, and Yahaira Rios. If you could give them a warm welcome. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I am joined, if you would please stand up, and then also the other individuals in the back. Today I am joined by Cassie Montes of Nevada State, soon-to-be University, Daniela Castro-Anguiano, and Chloe Yoakum of UNR, and they are all from the National Student Speech, Language, and Hearing Association. These individuals are planning on becoming educators in their own right as well. And when it comes to speech pathology, and it comes to audiology, these are incredibly important educators that are oftentimes overlooked because it is not that title of teacher. And yet, they will help a third grade student figure out how exactly to say the pledge, where he will not be teased. Or they will help a fifth grader figure out that maybe their hearing's not going quite as well as they should be, and now I've got to figure out how to handle that. And we don't think about hearing loss when it comes to children, but that does happen often. And so this is so exciting to have not only these three joining me on the floor, but also the other individuals in the back who are joining the profession of education and are helping to provide a much better world for our children. Please join me in welcoming them to our floor.
Assemblyman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have with me today on the floor my most wonderful and perfect, she wrote this, attaché Sarah Franklin. This is her second session working for me as an attaché, and I've got to be really honest, I couldn't do it without her. She truly is an asset to keeping me on track and on schedule. She's a University of Nevada Reno graduate and a Northern Nevada local. However, that isn't why she's here really today with me. I'm going to ask you all to join in celebrating, congratulating her. She got, engaged this past weekend by her high school sweetheart, Dalton Butler, who is a good friend of mine also. So may I say, we'll congratulate Dalton and say that he definitely will be marrying up and extend our warmest appreciations also to Sarah and all that she does and the best future that she can possibly have. Please.
As president of the Married Up Club, we welcome Dalton as a future member. Assemblyman Koenig, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I have the pleasure of having two of my favorite people in the world here today. With me here is my youngest brother, Brett Giusti, who lives in Fernley, Nevada, so he's a constituent of mine, besides being my brother. Brett teaches at the Davidson Academy, and all of us on the education committees know that all of our bills have the line in there, school for the profoundly gifted, located on a college campus, and I blame him every time I see that for having to add that in there. But Brett teaches physics, and in the past, and I'm not sure now, he's taught astronomy, and I always tease him and call it astrology, and he doesn't like that, but he teaches astronomy at the Davidson Academy. Next to him is my son, Davis. We just found out a couple weeks ago, Davis passed his optometry boards, starts his internship on Tuesday, and after 4 rotations, will graduate and come join the practice and will make my life a heck of a lot easier if I have the privilege of coming back next session. If you could welcome them with a round of applause, appreciate it.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to introduce the body here to my student, Stephanie Vasquez, and her mom, Patricia Irahita, who are visiting here. This is their first time in the Capitol. And I'll also say this is their trip here. This was their first time flying, either one of them. So I think it's a real indicator of the great heights that are going to be attained by them together as two of my most active and dynamic neighborhood members and constituents, and especially Stephanie, who's a rising senior and who wants to go into dentistry. So please let us make them feel welcome. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Assemblyman Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think today is Sarah, the attaché day in the Assembly. Today I have my attaché, Sarah Flacchini. Some of you might recognize the last name. She might be the sister of another attaché that serves over on the Senate side. But this is her first session. She has been fantastic. And just if you guys could all welcome her, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Couple of things today. So yesterday I was a bit in a fog and I forgot to acknowledge that our colleague from District 26, it was his birthday, but I forgot to tell you a couple of little things about him. Did you know that he completed the Chicago Marathon in 1994? That his hobbies are golf, mineral collecting, and hiking, and that he is a geologist. I think the folks in Nat Ram probably know this by trade. So I did not want to slight him because he's the gentle, quiet giant to my right, and I wanted him to make sure that I acknowledged some of the amazing things that he's done in his life. And then on another note, today we have another birthday. If you recognize OPI, Essie, Olive and June, Deborah Lipman, what's that? Nails. Our colleague in Assembly District, oh my goodness, I'm lost. 32, thank you, see? Gentle giant to the right, got me. Is celebrating her birthday today. She is a wonderful and sweet person. My whole time I've been here, she's been kind to me. She and her spouse took me on an adventure to Pyramid Lake and to Winnemucca, my very first time having a really rural tour, and we were in a car for 16 hours together, and I did not kill her spouse. Only because she did a wonderful job of mediating and centering that trip on us, because he was driving us, the daisies, troublemakers. She's a lovely woman with 8 beautiful children, 20 grandchildren, and 4 in the oven on their way. And I think that she deserves to pamper herself every now and again. So I invite you all to enjoy some sweet treats in the caucus room after, and then she can show off her pampering gift that we got her for her birthday that has to do with all those things that we discussed, Essie, Lipman, all that. But I want you all to put your hands together and please celebrate her wonderful birthday today.
Her spouse is also a member of the Married Up Club. Any other order of business 15 at the moment? Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today marks a grim and heartbreaking milestone for our nation. 1 year ago today, 21 precious lives were stolen when a gunman in Uvalde, Texas, walked into Robb Elementary School and opened fire. Over an hour later, his horrific and despicable actions left 19 little children and 2 teachers dead, murdered in their own classrooms. 19 children, all of them 11 years or younger. Children who never came home to their families, who were looking forward to a summer break that never came, who would have gone on to live full and happy lives, but never got the chance. Remember them today. They're teachers who bravely and selflessly lay down their lives defending their students. Remember them today. And remember those who survived. Children who had their innocence ripped away from them and will face a lifetime of trauma. In the aftermath of grief, grief rippled across our nation. We wept for those children and the teachers, and mourned another horrific school shooting. We wept out of sadness for the tragedy and out of fear for the next one. It has already been 1 year, but for those families, the friends, and their community, it has been an eternity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Any other order of business 15 this morning? Assemblywoman Howdy, would you like to ask for a 1-minute recess so we can allow our guests to exit?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 1 minute recess, please.
We will be in a 1-minute recess for our guests to exit. You are welcome to stay, but we're going to be here a while, so we are in recess. The Assembly will come back to order. Order Business 4, reports of standing committees.
Mr. Speaker, Committee on Commerce and Labor, to which was referred Senate Bill 336, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back. The recommendation then do pass as amended. Elaine Marzullo, Chair. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Health and Human Services, to which were referred Senate Bills 109, 192, 280, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back. The recommendation then do pass as amended. Sarah Peters, Chair. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Judiciary, to which was referred Senate Bill 235, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back. The recommendation then do pass as amended. Brittany Miller, Chair.
Order of Business 8, motions, resolutions, and notices.
Senate Joint Resolution 3, introduced by the Committee on Natural Resources, urging the United States Bureau of Reclamation to consider certain actions, alternatives, and measures for the protection and management of the Colorado River. Resolved that this resolution becomes effective upon passage. End of resolution.
Are there any amendments to the joint resolution?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Members, we will stand at ease for just a moment as we try to get our computer system to catch up with our pace. Assemblywoman Howdy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 1 minute recess, please.
We will be in a 1 to 5 minute recess. The Assembly will come back to order for Senate Joint Resolution 3. We will be doing a roll call vote, and the Chief Clerk can begin that roll call vote, please.
Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Backus. Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod. Assemblywoman Brown May. Assemblyman Carter. Assemblywoman Cohen. Assemblywoman Considine. Assemblyman DeLong. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblyman De Silva. Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblywoman Gallant. Assemblywoman Gonzalez. Assemblywoman Gordlow. Assemblyman Gray. Assemblyman Gurr. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblywoman Hanson. Assemblywoman Hardy. Assemblyman Hibbets. Assemblywoman Howdigi. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblyman Koenig. Assemblywoman Lura Hatch. Assemblywoman Marzola. Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblywoman Brittany Miller. Assemblyman C.H. Miller. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. Assemblywoman Mosca. Assemblywoman Newby. Assemblyman Wynn. Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblyman Orentlicker. Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Assemblywoman Taylor. Assemblywoman Thomas. Assemblywoman Torres. Assemblyman Watts. Assemblyman Urick. Speaker Yeager.
Aye. The Senate Joint Resolution, having received 42 ayes, 0 nays, has received a constitutional majority. I declare the Senate Joint Resolution ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Notice of exemption, May 23rd, 2023. The Fiscal Analysis Division, pursuant to Joint Standing Rule 14.6, has determined the eligibility for exemption of Senate Bill 362, Sarah Kaufman, Fiscal Analysis Division. Notice of exemption, May 24, 2023. The Fiscal Analysis Division, pursuant to Joint Standing Rule 14.6, has determined the eligibility for exemption of Senate Bill 11, Sarah Kaufman, Fiscal Analysis Division.
Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the persons as set forth on the Nevada Legislature's press accreditation list of May 24th, 2023 be accepted as accredited press representatives, that they be assigned space at the press table in the Assembly chamber, that they be allowed the use of appropriate broadcasting facilities, and that the list be included in this day's journal.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
I think we got it now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 8.
Order of Business 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Senate Bill 11, Senate Bill 362 that are currently on general file be re-referred to your Committee on Ways and Means.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that all bills reported out of committee be immediately placed on second reading for the remainder of session.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Assembly Bill 497, Senate Bill 76, Senate Bill 114, Senate Bill 293, and Senate Bill 424 be taken from their place on general file and be placed on the Chief Clerk's desk.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Senate Bill 92 be taken from its place on general file and be placed at the top of general file for the purposes of amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Assemblywoman Haudegi.
1 minute recess, Mr. Speaker.
We will be in a 1-minute recess. The Assembly will come back to order. We are still under Order of Business 8, motions, resolutions, and notices. Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Senate Bill 104, Senate Bill 134, Senate Bill 146, Senate Bill 161, Senate Bill 180, Senate Bill 196, Senate Bill 211, Senate Bill 251, Senate Bill 262, Senate Bill 269, Senate Bill 302, Senate Bill 314, Senate Bill 315, Senate Bill 317, Senate Bill 321, Senate Bill 322, Senate Bill 348, Senate Bill 384, Senate Bill 391, Senate Bill 393, and Senate Bill 429 be taken from their place on general file and be placed at the bottom of general file.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. We will stand at ease for just a moment while we reorganize the general file. Still under Order of Business 8, motions, resolutions, and notices. Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Senate Bill 239 be taken from its place on general file and be placed at the bottom of general file.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. That takes us to Order of Business 11, second reading and amendment.
Senate Bill 109, introduced by Senator Wynn, an act relating to anatomical gifts, authorizing a coroner or a medical examiner to release a body or part of a body that is the subject of an anatomical gift under certain circumstances, prescribing a procedure for a court to appoint a person to make an anatomical gift or part or all of a decedent's body under certain circumstances, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people's state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 8, end of Section 8, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 646 proposed by the Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services.
Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment 646 to Senate Bill 109.
Assemblywoman Peters has moved for the adoption of amendment number 646 to Senate Bill 109. Seeing no remarks, all those in favor of adopting the amendment signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered reprinted and engrossed in the general file.
Senate Bill 192, introduced by the Committee on Health and Human Services and Oakland County Hospitals, revising provisions governing meetings of a Board of Hospital Trustees, revising certain provisions related to a hospital advisory board, authorizing a Board of Hospital Trustees or hospital governing board to employ dentists, and providing of the most appropriately thereto, the people's state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 5, end of Section 5, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 716, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services.
Assemblywoman Marzola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment 670 to Senate Bill 336.
We shall try that again. Assemblywoman Peters, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment 716 to Senate Bill 192.
Just so the record is clear, Assemblywoman Peters has moved for the adoption of amendment number 716 to Senate Bill 192. Seeing no remarks, all those in favor of adopting the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered reprinted and engrossed in the general file.
Senate Bill 235, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary and Accolade Criminal Procedure, revising provisions relating to pretrial release hearings, authorizing a court to impose additional conditions of release on a person under certain circumstances, and providing in the manner appropriately thereto, the people's state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 658, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary.
Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Amendment 658 to Senate Bill 235.
Assemblywoman Miller has moved for the adoption of amendment number 658 to Senate Bill 235. Seeing no remarks, all those in favor of adopting the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered reprinted and engrossed in the general file.
Senate Bill 280, introduced by Senator Wynn and Accolade Healthcare, requiring a hospital to provide for the insertion of certain long-acting reversible contraceptive if requested by a patient giving birth at a hospital, limiting the amount a hospital or provider of healthcare may require an insured to pay for long-acting reversible contraception under certain circumstances, prohibiting an insured from refusing to cover the insertion of certain contraceptive devices at a hospital immediately after an insured gives birth, and providing of the matters appropriately thereto, the people's state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 18, end of Section 18, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 651, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services.
Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment 651 to Senate Bill 280.
Assemblywoman Peters has moved for the adoption of amendment number 651 to Senate Bill 280. Seeing no remarks, all those in favor of adopting the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered reprinted and engrossed in the general file.
Senate Bill 336, introduced by Senators Orenshaw and Stone, and Accolade Healthcare, exempting certain conduct of certain practitioners of healing arts practicing within their authorized scope of authority from provisions governing certain practitioners of other healing arts, enacting provisions governing the certification and regulation of certified nurse, registered nurse anesthetists, authorizing a certified registered nurse anesthetist to order, prescribe, possess, and administered controlled substances, poisons, dangerous drugs, and devices under certain circumstances, and providing other measures appropriately thereto, the people stated that are represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 7, end of Section 7, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 670, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor.
Assemblywoman Marzola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment 670 to Senate Bill 336.
Assemblywoman Marzola has moved for the adoption of amendment number 670 to Senate Bill 336. Seeing no remarks, all those in favor of adopting the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered reprinted, engrossed into general file. That will take us to order of business 12, general file and third reading.
Senate Bill 92, introduced by Senators Joniade et al., Assemblywomen Marzola et al., an act relating to sidewalk vendors, establishing certain requirements for the regulation of sidewalk vendors by the governing body of certain counties and cities, requiring a local board of health to adopt certain regulations relating to sidewalk vendors who sell food, creating the task force on safe sidewalk vending, setting forth the membership and duties of the task force on safe sidewalk vending, providing penalties, and providing other measures appropriate and thereto. The people's state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly. Do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 29, end of Section 29, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 720 proposed by Assemblywoman Torres.
Assemblywoman Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt Amendment 720 to SB 92.
Assemblywoman Torres has moved for the adoption of amendment number 720 to Senate Bill 92. Seeing no remarks, all those in favor of adopting the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered reprinted and gross in the general file.
Assembly Bill 463, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means, an act relating to children, transferring certain duties and authority related to the licensing and regulation of certain child care facilities from the Division of Public and Behavioral Health of the Department of Health and Human Services to the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services of the Department, revising the membership of the Nevada Early Childhood Advisory Council, revising provisions governing the inspection and review of child care facilities, revising provisions governing the inspection and approval of certain fire facilities by certain protection officials and agencies, and providing other measures appropriately thereto. The people's state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly. Do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 14, end of Section 14, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There were 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 520, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means, an act relating to state financial administration, making appropriations from the State General Fund and the State Highway Fund for the support of the civil government of the state of Nevada for the 2023-2025 biennium, providing for the use of the money so appropriated, making various other changes relating to the financial administration of the state, and providing other measures appropriately thereto. The people's state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly. Do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 93, end of Section 93, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll warn everyone, these are going to be extremely long, so be patient. Assembly Bill 520, otherwise known as the Appropriation Bill. It's general fund appropriations included in the General Appropriations Act total $3,453,793,513 in FY24 and $3,588,282,593 in FY25, or $7.042 billion over the 23-25 biennium, an increase of approximately $1.026 billion when compared to the general fund appropriations approved by the 2021 legislature for the 21-23 biennium. The act includes highway fund appropriations totaling $167,536,425 in FY24, $168,606,045 in FY25, or $336.1 million over the 23-25 biennium, an increase of approximately $30.8 million from the previous biennium. For the Judiciary Department, the executive budget included $23.3 million in court administrative assessments revenue over the 23-25 biennium. In closing the budgets for the Judiciary Department, the money committees approved replacing all court administrative assessments, revenue, and judicial department budgets with direct general fund appropriations. Through the replacement of that revenue source, the money committees approved the total general fund appropriations of $5.7 million over the 23-25 biennium to fund 30 new positions for the Judiciary Department, and also approved the consolidation of all non-elected positions within the judiciary budget, excluding the Commission on Judiciary Discipline, into one new budget account, and to allow the Supreme Court to employ such persons as it deems necessary with salaries and benefits determined by the Supreme Court within the limits of legislative appropriations for that purpose. The money committees approved one-time general fund appropriations of $2.4 million over the 23-25 biennium to fund the replacement of the Supreme Court's legacy case management system for the appellate court, $1.3 million over the 23-25 biennium to implement a statewide digital evidence management system, and $1.4 million in FY24 to build a hybrid training facility within the existing space in the Carson City Supreme Court building. For K-12 education, the funding for public school and K-12 education was considered separately in the K-12 education funding bill, which contains the funding for the pupil-centered funding plan and other programs related to K-12 education. However, during the closing, the Department of Education's budget, the money committees approved general fund support totaling $119.1 million over the 2023-25 biennium, which includes $34.5 million to fund the administration of statewide assessments. The money committees also approved total general fund appropriations of $22.3 million in FY24 and $24.8 million in FY25 for subgrants to entities participating in the state pre-K program. General fund appropriations of $1.1 million over the 23-25 biennium for a new school improvement program for Nevada's lowest performing schools, and general fund appropriations of $2.7 million over the 23-25 biennium to fund 11.5 new positions, as well as 4 positions previously funded with federal funding. In the Nevada system of higher education, the budget committee's closings for INCHE, the money committees approved total general fund appropriations of $1.467 billion over the 23-25 biennium. In approving the INCHE budgets, the money committees approved to suspend the funding formula distribution component and allocate general fund appropriations to each of the instructional institutions using the traditional base, maintenance, and enhancement decision unit model. For the Department of Health and Human Services, Aging and Disability Services Division, the money committee approved general fund appropriations totaling $514.4 million over the 23-25 biennium. Of that amount, the money committees approved general fund appropriations of $46.8 million over the 23-25 biennium to support caseload growth, wait list reductions, and associated staffing adjustments for various programs. The Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy, the money committees approved general fund appropriations totaling $2.514 billion over the 23-25 biennium. The funding supports projected Medicaid average monthly caseloads of approximately 877,000 in FY24 and 858,000 in FY25. The projected case checkup average monthly caseload of approximately 23,400 in FY24 and 23,400 in FY25. The Division of Public and Behavioral Health, the money committees approved total general fund appropriations of $344.4 million over the 23-25 biennium. The Division of Welfare and Supportive Services, the money committees approved total general fund appropriations of $222.4 million to the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services for the 23-25 biennium, including general fund appropriations of $49.2 million over the biennium to the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, otherwise known as TANF budget, primarily to support the TANF cash assistant caseload. The Division of Child and Family Services, the Money Committees approved $352.9 million in general fund appropriations over the 23-25 biennium for the support of the Division of Child and Family Services, including $4.9 million in general fund appropriations to transfer in 22 positions from the Northern Nevada Child and Adolescent Service budget and to fund 56 new positions over the 23-25 biennium to staff the Desert Willow Treatment Center. For the Department of Corrections, the Money Committees approved $647.9 million in general fund appropriations over the 23-25 biennium, which would provide housing for an average of 10,223 offenders in FY24 and 10,480 offenders in FY25. For the Department of Motor Vehicles, the Money Committees approved highway fund appropriations of $164.7 million over the 23-25 biennium to support the operations of the Department of Motor Vehicles. Included in this amount are highway fund appropriations totaling $73 million over the 23-25 biennium to continue the department's transformation effort project. For the Department of Public Safety, the Money Committees approved $143.8 million in general fund appropriations and $161.8 million in highway fund appropriations over the 23-25 biennium. For the Division of Parole and Probation, the Money Committees approved $115.2 million in general fund appropriations to support the division over the 23-25 biennium. For the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, the Money Committees approved general fund appropriations totaling $88.9 million over the 23-25 biennium. And for the Public Employees Benefits Program, in closing, the Money Committees approved general fund appropriations of $9.8 million in FY24 and $10 million in FY25 to provide additional health savings account and health reimbursement arrangement contributions between $300 and $500 based on a participant's coverage tier. The Money Committees also approved general fund appropriations of $2 million in each year of the biennium that, when combined with the funding provided through the plan and these appropriations, would provide active state employees and retired state employees with life insurance coverage equivalent to the pre-COVID-19 pandemic levels.
Are there any further remarks? Assemblyman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
I rise today in support of Assembly Bill 520. Because of responsible management by the legislature, we have an opportunity to make a historic investment in Nevada's families and communities. In this body, we hear a lot about improving mental health services. Well, investing in mental health is not just a talking point for me. Assembly Bill 520 makes it a reality and helps to fill the gap in this critical service that so many Nevadans rely on, something this body can do today. By passing Assembly Bill 520, we will be taking action to invest in both Northern and Southern Nevada adult mental health services today. It will also address Nevada's physical health by directing needed funds toward Medicaid and a public health care option today. These major investments into Nevadans are common sense after making it through a global pandemic that left so many injured and vulnerable. Dr. King said the time is always right to do what is right. The time is now, and I hope you all will join me in doing what's right for Nevadans by supporting Assembly Bill 520. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Are there further remarks? Assemblywoman Brown-May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of Assembly Bill 520. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored to serve as a member of this distinguished body every day, but no more so than today. I have served on the Ways and Means Committee and have had the good fortune of watching the hard work of all of our colleagues come together to craft this dynamic piece of legislation. I have heard many say the bills we bring should reflect our values. I believe this bill does that. It is our responsibility to utilize our record revenues to invest in Nevadans, our health care, our education, our livelihoods. Notwithstanding where we live, north, south, rural, all our communities will benefit by the investment, lifelong Nevadans and new citizens, even the newest ones, on the floor across the hall. This measure provides record investments for those of us who are all too often left out or forgotten, including our diverse population of people with disabilities. Investing in early intervention supports for our youngest residents, the special supports for K-12 and special education students, adult transition and community supports. This legislation supports all of our citizens, including those left in the disability community who are often forgotten. Please join me in supporting this measure, support Assembly Bill 520. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Further remarks, Assemblywoman Kasama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
I rise today to speak to our Assembly Bill 520. There are so many good programs and appropriations that we do have in this bill. And I can assure you that I took notes during the meetings, and I read the bill with the little time that was provided to me, and there are differences from the hearings to the final bill that is presented. Objections were made to certain areas of expenditures of the bills during the hearings. No negotiations or even attempts to work with the governor were made. We support the budget as presented by the governor. There's truly no attempt at bipartisan efforts for this budget to present a fiscally sound budget that promotes the best policies and programs for all Nevadans.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Further remarks, Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of AB 520, Order of Business 15, if I may.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There have been many comments already made about these historic investments in our communities and across our state. And there have been numerous discussions on our committees and numerous decisions that have been made, which is exactly what we were elected to do. Today, I stand as an educator, incredibly proud of the fact that this budget allows us to see that the individuals that it will be helped include our pre-K students, our students before the age of 6. And as we all know, earlier today, I had some guests on the floor, the speech language pathologist, and they gave me a little brain. It's not a hint, or maybe it is. But this brain, our brains, are 90% developed before the age of 6. The budget that you have in front of you, the bill that you have in front of you, acknowledges that with an historic investment of almost $50 million in early childhood learning and development. In addition to that, it recognizes that not only are we investing for our kids before they turn the age of 6, but we're also helping our children after 18, or even after 17 if they decide to take dual credit, when they attend our Nevada system of higher educations. We are recognizing that education, that communities, and that helping each other is not just in our committee meetings, and not just in this building, but more importantly, in our classrooms, in our communities, and in our state. I ask for your support in AB 520. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Are there further remarks? Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know that there's a lot of people in the building that are watching the work that we're doing. But there's a lot of people that are watching us virtually online. And I'd like to assure them that as the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, We not only have committee meetings and subcommittee meetings, but I personally come in every morning between 6:45 and 7 a.m. to meet with my staff, the governor's staff, and the GFO. So there have been a number of meetings that got us to the point that we're here today, a number of conversations that we've had to get us to this bill, and there has been a lot of negotiations. We're not always going to agree on everything, but we do make opportunities to make sure that everyone's voices are heard, and a lot of the things that are in all of these bills that you will be voting on today have the governor's recommendations included in them. Just wanted to get that on the record.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Are there further remarks? Seeing none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The Chief Clerk will record the vote. There are 28 ayes, 14 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority declared passed and ordered immediately transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 521, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means, an act relating to projects of capital improvement, authorizing certain expenditures for such projects of the executive and legislative departments of the state government, levying a property tax to support the consolidated bond interest and redemption fund, making appropriations and providing other measures appropriately thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 33, end of Section 33, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And morning, this is another long explanation. Assembly Bill 521, otherwise known as the CIP bill, provides for the implementation of the 2023 Capital Improvement Program. As approved by the Money Committees, the bill includes funding in the amount of $1.189 billion for the 23 Capital Improvement Program and $32.3 million for resource conservation and preservation programs of the state outside of the CIP. The bill includes the following major funding sources to support the 2023 CIP: $672 million in general obligation bonds, $522.2 million in general fund appropriations, $69.9 million in federal funds for the Office of the Military, the Department of Veteran Services, and the Department of Administration projects, $11.5 million in the State Highway Fund for the Department of Motor Vehicles and the Department of Public Safety projects, $5.4 million in agency funds to support the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources and the Department of Administration projects, $5 million in excess funding reallocated from projects approved in prior capital improvement programs, $3 million in slot tax fund from the Special Higher Education Capital Construction Fund. Construction projects included in Assembly Bill 521 provides $830.5 million to support 30 construction projects in the 2023 Capital Improvement Program. The notable projects include $105.9 million to fund construction of a new Department of Motor Vehicles facility, which will be located on Silverado Ranch Boulevard in Las Vegas, $99.8 million to remodel the Southern Nevada State Veterans Hospital in Boulder City, $158.5 million to construct an office building, a Kincaid building site in Carson City, $213.9 million to purchase 18 office buildings and a parking garage in Las Vegas, $74.5 million for building improvements for the office buildings to be purchased in Las Vegas that are intended to be used by the executive branch agencies. For maintenance, planning, and statewide projects, Assembly Bill 521 provides $258.9 million for 49 various maintenance projects for existing state facilities, $57.1 million for 6 advanced planning and design projects, and $42.5 million for 13 statewide projects, including roofing repairs, advanced planning for future projects, paving, building officials, fire, life, safety, and accessibility projects. The maintenance projects funding include but are not limited to approximately $86.9 million for the Department of Corrections in replacing of an HVAC system, doors, locks, water and sewer system, plumbing fixtures, boilers, underground piping replacement, installation of surveillance cameras, and electrical upgrades. $70.4 million to renovate the chilled water plant at the Desert Research Institute and to address deferred maintenance projects for institutions of the Nevada State higher education. $40 million to address deferred maintenance projects including central plant renovations, electrical, HVAC systems, rehabilitated historical fence and lighting at the Capitol, and replacement of surveillance cameras, door access controls, and security systems for the Department of Administration. $37.8 million for the Department of Health and Human Services for replacement of electrical systems, central plant renovations, fire system upgrades, replacement of HVAC systems, installation of security cameras and fencing, and a chiller and other boiler replacements. Other notable projects include $17.6 million for the advanced planning for the new Department of Public Safety headquarters building in Carson City, $15.5 million for the advanced planning for the new Southern Nevada Veterans Home in North Las Vegas, $18.2 million for the advanced planning of the new Southern Nevada Forensic Facility in Las Vegas. For the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources bond programs, Assembly Bill 521 authorizes the issuance of $59.3 million in state general obligations bonds to support 3 resource protection programs, which include $43.3 million for the Conservation Bond Program established through the passage of AB 84 in the 2019 legislative session, of which $27.0 million supports CIP projects, 23-C20, and a portion of 23-C12 for the Division of Museums and History. $13 million for the Lake Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program, $3 million for the Cultural Centers and Historic Preservation Grant Program. The property tax levy, this bill includes 16.8 cents property tax levy for debt services in each of the 23-25 biennium for the general obligation bonds issued to finance the capital improvement program. The bill includes an additional 0.82 cents levy in each year of the biennium that must be used exclusively for the repayment of the bonded indebtedness issued as a result of the approval by the voters of Question 1 on the Nevada 2002 ballot, and for bonds to be issued for the Conservation Bond Program established through the passage of Assembly Bill 84 of the 2019 session. Both programs were approved to protect, preserve, and obtain the benefits of the property and natural resources of our state. The total property tax levy of 17 cents remains unchanged from the levies approved by the 21-23 biennium. The levies above the historic 15 cents levy, 2 cents, are not subject to the $3.64 local government property tax cap. And finally, for the Legislative Council Bureau Capital Improvement Program, Assembly Bill 521 provides general fund appropriations in the amount of $114.2 million and authorizes the issuance of $100 million in state general obligations bonds to support various capital improvement projects in Carson City and in Las Vegas for the Legislative Capitol building. Additionally, the bill clarifies the supervision and control of certain properties related to the Capitol Mall area and the Legislative Parking Garage in Carson City, as well as property to be acquired in Las Vegas. And this bill becomes effective upon approval and passage.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Are there further remarks on Assembly Bill 521? Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of Assembly Bill 521. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill will make significant capital improvements in our state's facilities. One of the things that's important to me is, in recent years, the threat of wildfires and the incidence of wildfires has skyrocketed, and we have seen the devastation that they can wreak in our homes and our communities. As climate change continues to worsen, that threat is only going to continue to grow. Assembly Bill 521 invests nearly $2 million in the Nevada Army National Guard statewide Fire and Life Safety Program. This program will help Nevada stay ready and prepared to fight the threat posed by fires before they get out of control. It also further invests in conservation programs, natural resources, and protecting some of our beautiful outdoor spaces to keep our state the best place possible to live, work, and raise a family. For the investments that it makes in protecting our natural resources and protecting public safety, I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting Assembly Bill 521. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Are there further remarks? Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of Assembly Bill 521, Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to speak in support of Assembly Bill 521, which will provide much-needed funding for capital improvement projects for government buildings across Nevada. Capital improvements are not to build nicer office spaces or buildings. They result in better government services for the citizens who rely on them. Included in Assembly Bill 521 is funding for Americans with Disability Act Statewide Assistance Fund, Department of Public Safety Headquarters, remodeling the Summit View Youth Center, and more. Nevadans expect and deserve high-quality government services, and Assembly Bill 521 will help deliver them. I hope you will join me in voting for Assembly Bill 521.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Are there further remarks? Assemblywoman Kasama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order 15.
Order Business 15.
Thank you again. There are so many great appropriations in our CIP bill as well in Assembly Bill 521, and many of those we do support. However, we do have a large issue with the great expanse of the Legislative Council Bureau footprint. We're looking at expanding the square footage for the Legislative Council Bureau in Southern Nevada to a larger square footage than currently what is in Carson City, the capital for the state of Nevada. And in addition to that, we see that not heard in the hearings, but in the bill, is a transfer of the lands to the title to be transferred to the Legislative Council Bureau, and I'm not aware of that happening in any of the other branches of government. We see here that the Legislative Council budget for the next biennium has increased to $57.7 million, or a 77.8% increase over the previous biennium. This is such an expansion in this area that in regards to this particular area in the CIP budget, we cannot support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Are there further remarks on Assembly Bill 521? Assemblyman De Silva.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Today, I'm speaking in support of the Capital Improvement Budget, or Assembly Bill 521. As a combat veteran who saw service in Iraq, I feel it is important that the government acknowledge, recognize, and care for those who are prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice. The Capital Improvement Budget will fund much-deserved projects to ensure that our veterans are honored and treated with dignity. Projects such as remodeling the Southern Nevada State Veterans Home, such as construction of the North Las Vegas Veterans Home, such as adding to the Northern Nevada State Veterans Home, and making improvements to the Veterans Memorial Cemeteries. Please join me in supporting Assembly Bill 521. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Are there further remarks? Assemblywoman Dickman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity. I rise in opposition to this bill. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
There's a number of issues in this bill that do not match up with the governor's recommendations. There's a lot of things in this bill that we are highly supportive of. But for example, Section 6 funds over $94 million with general obligation bonds that should be funded with cash. Given the current interest rates and the cost of bonds, this will increase the costs of these projects. Another issue that I have is that there's $214 million in general fund cash and $100 million in general obligation bonds for LCB CIP projects, which have no specifics in the bill as to the projects or the related costs. So it's clear to me that we need more negotiations, and therefore I will be voting no and urge my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Further remarks on Assembly Bill 521, Assemblywoman Howdegui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you. I rise in support of Assembly Bill 521. We worked very hard over the last 4 months and even before the legislative session began on a lot of what we see in this bill. A lot of what we see in this bill was also worked on very closely with the governor's office, including some of the buildings in Southern Nevada. Also, I do want to correct some information. There is precedence. The buildings currently are titled to their respective branches. The Legislative Council Bureau currently does own the building. The title issues that my colleague referenced in the bill simply transfer an existing building that we currently take care of and pay for from the Supreme Court to the Legislative Council Bureau. So that has already taken place. There is so much good being done in this bill that has been worked on for hours by the committee and by the chair and by the governor's office and the GFO on things that we compromised on and agreed on in this bill. And so I urge all of my colleagues to support Assembly Bill 521.
Are there any further remarks? Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For further clarification, in the governor's recommended budget, the 18 buildings that are in Las Vegas were not in his budget because he didn't, nor did we know that Director of Administration would find those buildings. So that was not included in the governor's recommendation. There were some other things that were included. However, in finding those 18 buildings by the Director of Administration, he saved the state a large amount of money. Myself and the chair of Senate Finance and the majority leader of the Senate joined the governor's staff, and we toured the 18 buildings that are listed in this bill. There was one building that would have accommodated all of the needs of the legislative body, just one. That's the building that we requested. However, the executive branch wanted that building. So to accommodate the needs of the legislature, we had to take 3 buildings, which did mean a larger expense for us. But that was the deal that was made. But if you've been in this building for any number of times, we've always talked about diversity, inclusion, and expanding who we have as employees. If we're going to have a footprint in Southern Nevada, we also need to have employees in the Southern Nevada. And this gives us that opportunity to get that diversity and inclusion because we have a bigger employment base. We have a bigger population in Southern Nevada. So we are able to do 2 things: grow who we are as a legislative body and our presence in Southern Nevada, but also grow the people who work for us to actually look like the people that we all represent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Are there further remarks on Assembly Bill 521? Seeing none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The Chief Clerk will record the vote. There are 28 ayes, 14 nays. The bill having received a 2/3 constitutional majority, I declare it passed and immediately transmitted to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 522, introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means, an act relating to public employees, establishing the maximum allowed salaries for certain state employees, making appropriations from the state general fund of the state highway fund for increases in the salaries of and the payment of retention incentives to certain employees of the state, establishing a plan for continuity of service of certain employees of the state, revising provisions relating to the designation of the legislative fiscal officer, eliminating a certain salary limitation and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 45, end of Section 45, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Assembly Bill 522, also known as the Pay Bill, establishes the maximum allowable salaries for certain employees not in the classified service of the state. The bill also makes general fund appropriations of $629.8 million and highway fund and appropriations of $56.4 million for salary increases for non-classified, classified, and unclassified state employees, various grade increases for certain employees, incentive bonuses for personnel employed on certain dates, and the restoration of longevity pay for personnel in the executive, legislative, and judicial departments within the addition of professional personnel employed by the Nevada system of higher education. For salary increases for state personnel that not within a bargaining unit pursuant to NRS 288.515, the legislative department, the judicial department, and the following collective bargaining units as defined in NRS 288.515. The bill provides funding for a 12% salary increase for FY24 effective July 1st, 2023, and a 4% salary increase in FY25 effective July 1st, 2024. Unit B is the administrative and clerical employees. Unit C is the technical aids to professional employees. Unit D is the professional employees who do not provide health care. Unit J are the supervisory employees from all occupational groups. For state employees organized in the following collective bargaining units as defined in NRS 288.515, the bill includes funding for a 13% salary increase for FY24 effective July 1st, 2023, and a 4% salary increase for FY25 effective July 1st, 2024. Unit A includes labor, maintenance, custodial, and institutional employees. Unit E are professional employees who provide health care. Unit F, employees other than professional employees who provide health care and personal care. Unit G is Category 1 peace officers. Unit I is Category 3 peace officers. For state employees organized in the following collective bargaining units as defined in NRS 288.515, the bill includes funding for a 10% salary increase for FY24 effective July 1st, 2023, and a 4% salary increase for FY25 effective July 1st, 2024. And those units are Unit H, which are the Category 2 peace officers, and Unit K, the firefighters. In addition, the bill provides for an additional 7% salary increase for classified, non-classified, and unclassified state employees and classified and professional employees of the Nevada system of higher education in FY25 if Assembly Bill 498 of the 23 legislative session is not enacted by the legislature and approved by the governor. Pay grade increases. The bill appropriates general funds of $40.6 million and highway funds of $9.5 million for 1, 2, and 3 grade pay increases for certain positions on the classified employee compensation plan. Retention incentives. The bill appropriates $21.9 million in general funds in each year of the biennium for retention incentives of $250 per quarter for employees of the Executive Department, Judicial Department, and Legislative Department and the Public Employees Retirement System. Additionally, the bill allocates $3.5 million in each year of the 23-25 biennium for retention incentives for professional employees in the Nevada system of higher education. Longevity pay. The bill amends Chapter 284 of NRS to include a plan to encourage continuity of service by providing a semi-annual payment of $100 to an employee with 8 years of continuous service with an annual increase of $25 in the semi-annual payment for an employee with 9 to 14 years of continuous service. $50 for employees with 15 to 24 years of continuous service, and $75 for employees with continuous service after 24 years, up to a maximum payment of 30 years for continuous service with the state. The bill further appropriates general funds totaling $6.1 million in each year of the 23-25 biennium and highway funds of $1.3 million for FY24, $1.5 million for FY25 to fund the plan to encourage continual service with our state. Assembly Bill 522 authorizes the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Corrections to provide callback pay for unclassified medical positions and pharmacists to perform on-call responsibilities to ensure 24-hour coverage in our psychiatric and medical facilities. The bill also authorizes the Gaming Control Board to continue the credential pay plan, which provides up to $5,000 annually for unclassified employees who possess a current Nevada Certified Public Accountant certificate, a license to practice law, or in a qualified position as an electronic laboratory engineer and possesses a Bachelor of Science or higher degree in engineering, electronic engineering, or computer science. Sections up to 12, inclusive of Section 21 to 38 inclusive, and Sections 41 to 44 inclusive of this Act become effective on July 1st of 2023. Sections 13 to 20 inclusive and Sections 39 to 40 of this Act become effective on July 1st, 2023. If and only if Assembly Bill 498 of the 81st Legislative Session is not enacted by the legislature and approved by the governor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Are there any further remarks on Assembly Bill 522? Assemblyman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in opposition to Assembly Bill 522. Order of Business 15, please.
Order of Business 15.
First, may I say I appreciate the work of our chair, members, and particularly staff of Ways and Means for their efforts and diligence on looking at the monies allocated and projected for our state over the last 100-plus days. But may I also say that the governor, who was elected by the majority of the population of the state of Nevada, submitted a bill for payments, a budget that came balanced and was appropriate with historic. We talk about historic actions here, and he did give an historic budget, huge increases to a variety of issues facing this state, the economy, education, and particularly public safety, and what we're talking about today, our public state employees. And I was one. I can speak to this, having been on the front line for 30 years as a state employee, and seeing what has been done and not done to state employees. But with that, may I say, with that major increase that the governor is proposing, our governor is proposing, he is also saying that what is being proposed is sustainable. So what has happened in the past, from almost day one when I arrived in Nevada in 1980, that they gave something to state employees and within 2-3 years took it away from state employees. They would give a 2% increase and pay raise and then take a 3% increase in other payments that the state employees, netting them a loss. So it's that sustainability that I stand. That's what I worried about. I do not want to be responsible for coming back when I return here in 2 years or 4 years to have to remove that away from my fellow employees. With that, probably one of the biggest problems, because there is a lot of good in all these bills, particularly in 522. But what is the issue? What we need and what we should think about in the future is allowing the governor to have line item vetoes to address those that are truly unsustainable and allow those that are good to
Assemblyman
continue.
O'Neill, I would urge you to keep your comments to the content of this bill in itself.
I apologize.
If you could just, that's
And I
not up for discussion by the body this afternoon, so if you could please just limit your comments to
Well, I
the
say-
content.
Then let me correct that, please, Mr. Speaker, saying there are other options that may be addressed in the future. But with that, it's that I stand in opposition and ask my colleagues to consider that. Are you willing to give and take away in the future? Let that be resting with you on your thoughts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Are there further remarks on Assembly Bill 522? Assemblywoman Backus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of Assembly Bill 522. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Day in and day out, our dedicated public safety officers and state employees go to work serving the people of Nevada. Oftentimes, despite working long hours, they go underappreciated and without thanks. But make no mistake, one of the reasons that Nevada is the best state to raise a family is because of them and the sacrifices they make. They are true public servants. Without them, everything in our state would come to a grinding halt. Assembly Bill 522 will make appropriate, necessary, and long overdue investments in the people who keep our great state running. I urge all of my colleagues to support Assembly Bill 522. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Are there further remarks on Assembly Bill 522? Assemblyman Hibbets.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in opposition to AB 522. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
The proposals in this bill are not what was agreed upon in the governor's proposed budget, and despite how nice more and more spending always appears on the surface, this will send us toward a fiscal cliff. As a retired public employee, no one values our state workers more than I do. However, I think it's unfair to be asked to vote yes on such provisions when this body has refused to give a fair hearing to what our governor has proposed. His calls for historic increases in spending have only been met with calls for more. But balancing a budget responsibly is a zero-sum game. We cannot use non-recurring revenue to fund our state expenditures. I believe this demand for increased spending will force us to raise costs on Nevadans down the line. I'm also very concerned that our rainy day fund will be quickly depleted should we enter an even worse fiscal climate than the one we find ourselves in now. We owe it to Nevada to save money, and we owe it to all Nevadans, including our state workers, to have that rainy day fund available until when we need it. For these reasons, I stand opposed to AB 522. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Further remarks on Assembly Bill 522? Assemblywoman Howdegui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I am speaking in strong, enthusiastic support of Assembly Bill 522. We all know Nevada could not function without the hard work of our public safety officers and all of our state employees. Assembly Bill 522 makes critical investments in the public servants who keep our state operating. Public servants such as police officers, correctional officers, those who serve our veterans, and so many more. It provides essential, long overdue cost of living adjustments and reinstates a morale building longevity pay for those who have dedicated their careers to our state. Our state employees have been the backbone for our state for years, and it's time we properly invest in them so that they can continue to provide the critical services so many Nevadans rely on, the Nevadans that we represent. For 2 economic downturns, our state has been carried on the backs of state employees. It's time to say thank you. We see you. We didn't forget the sacrifices you made to help our state during our darkest days. I hope you will all join me today in supporting our state employees and supporting Assembly Bill 522.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Are there any further remarks on Assembly Bill 522? Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Order Business 15.
Order Business 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of Assembly Bill 522. As a former law enforcement officer myself and public employee, our public safety officers and our state employees consistently go above and beyond to serve the people of Nevada. They selfishly perform thankless acts every single day to keep Nevadans safe and keep our state functioning and functioning well. I am committed, and I know so many of you are as well, to respecting our public safety officers and our state employees, and ensuring that they have the pay that reflects the sacrifices that they make for all of us. At a time when our state is struggling with unprecedented vacancy rates across every state agency, Assembly Bill 522 will help Nevada to better attract and retain the best employees and improve state services. There was mention of our rainy day fund. Well, a number of us were here when we had to deplete our rainy day fund, and it was not just emotionally painful, the cuts we had to make, it was physically painful. So we made a commitment to the state to make sure that we had a rainy day fund that could take us through whatever that next pandemic is, and we know that there will be something. We have a total of $904 million currently in our rainy day fund, record numbers for the state of Nevada. But in FY21, we will add another $109.2 million to our rainy day. And we expect an additional $58.9 million in FY25, which will bring our record total to $1.072 million. Yes, putting the state in a fiscal cliff is not what any of us want to do. So we've been responsible fiscal leaders to make sure that we're prepared for the next pandemic, whatever that is. But we know for a fact we could not have made it through everything that we've made it through, not just this pandemic, but every other economic downturn that this state has weathered through was on the backs of our state employees and our public safety officers. And now, the first time that I've been in this building, and I think most of you, we have money to make sure that we say, yes, we see you, we hear you, you are important, and we're gonna make sure you have the resources to retain who we have and gain new employees. So therefore, I emphatically encourage the members to join me in supporting Assembly Bill 522 and show our dedicated public servants that they matter and that we have their backs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Are there further remarks on Assembly Bill 522? Seeing none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The Chief Clerk will record the vote. There are 28 ayes, 14 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, I declare it passed and ordered immediately transmitted to the Senate. Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that we stand in a 1-minute recess to allow the members to go on a bio break.
We will be in a brief recess. Members, please come back in 5 minutes. We do intend to continue with business. The Assembly will come back to order. We will go to order of business 4, reports of standing committees.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, to which was referred Senate Bill 349, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to put the same back to the recommendation and do pass as amended. Howard Watts, Chair.
Order of business 7, messages from the Senate.
Senate Chamber, Carson City, May 24, 2023. To the Honorable the Assembly, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Senate on this day passed Senate Bills 501, 503, 504. Sherry Rodriguez, Assistant Secretary of the Senate.
Bless you. Order of business 9, introduction, first reading, and reference of bills.
Senate Bill 501, introduced by the Committee on Finance, an act relating to programs for public personnel establishing for the 2023-2025 biennium the subsidies to be paid to the Public Employees Benefits Program for insurance for certain active and retired public officers and employees, and providing other matters properly named thereto.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Senate Bill 501 be referred to your Committee on Ways and Means.
Without objection, so referred.
Senate Bill 503, introduced by the Committee on Finance, an act relating to education, ensuring sufficient funding for K-12 public education for the 2023-2025 biennium, apportioning the state education fund for the 2023-2025 biennium, authorizing certain expenditures, making appropriations relating to base per pupil funding, weighted funding, and other educational purposes, revising provisions relating to at-risk pupils, and providing other matters properly named thereto.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Senate Bill 503 be referred to your Committee on Ways and Means.
Without objection, so referred.
Senate Bill 504, introduced by the Committee on Finance, an act relating to state financial administration, authorizing expenditures by various officers, departments, boards, agencies, commissions, and institutions of the state government for the 2023-2025 biennium, authorizing the collection of certain amounts from the counties in the 2023-2025 biennium for the use of the services of the state public defender, and providing other matters properly named thereto.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Senate Bill 504 be referred to your Committee on Ways and Means.
Without objection, so referred. Order of business 11, second reading and amendment.
Senate Bill 349, introduced by Senator Flores, an act relating to document preparation services, authorizing a document preparation service to use the name of the Department of Motor Vehicles in an advertisement under certain circumstances, requiring under certain circumstances a document preparation service to request an amended registration from the Secretary of State, making it unlawful for a person to represent himself or herself as a document preparation service if the person is not registered as a document preparation service, setting forth a form for statements that must be included in any advertisement for services of a document preparation service, authorizing under certain circumstances the Secretary of State to suspend or revoke the registration of a document preparation service, or to assess a civil penalty, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly in thereto. The brief state of that are represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 9, end of Section 9, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 594, proposed by the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure.
Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt amendment number 594 to Senate Bill 349.
Assemblyman Watts has moved for the adoption of amendment number 594 to Senate Bill 349. Seeing no remarks, all those in favor of adopting the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
We'll go to order business 8, motions, resolutions, and notices. Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Senate Bill 239 be taken from its place on general file and be placed at the top of general file.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. That will take us to order business, order business 12, general file and third reading.
Senate Bill 239, introduced by Senators Flores et al., Assemblyman Torres et al., an act relating to health care, revising provisions concerning medical certificates of death relating to a person who self-administers a medication that is designed to end his or her life, authorizing a physician or advanced practice registered nurse to prescribe a medication that is designed to end the life of a patient under certain circumstances, prohibiting persons other than the patient from administering a medication that is designed to end the life of the patient, imposing requirements on certain providers of health care and health care facilities relating relating to the records of a patient who requests a medication that is designed to end his or her life, providing immunity to certain providers of healthcare and healthcare facilities that take certain actions relating to prescribing or dispensing a medication that is designed to end the life of a patient, authorizing the owner or operator of a healthcare facility to prohibit certain persons from providing certain services relating to a medication that is designed to end the life of a patient, prohibiting a person from conditioning provisions of a will, contract, agreement, or policy of life insurance on the request for or acquisition or administration of the medication that is designed to end the life of a person, prohibiting a person from denying benefits under a policy of life insurance to or imposing additional charges against a policy holder or beneficiary because the insured requested or revoked a request for medication that is designed to end the life of the person, and providing other measures appropriately thereto. The people state of that are represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 52, end of Section 52, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Are there any remarks on Senate Bill 239? Seeing none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The Chief Clerk will record the vote. There are 23 ayes, 19 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declare it passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 14, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to gaming, authorizing the chair of the Nevada Gaming Control Board to administratively approve certain persons to temporarily engage in certain gaming activities or receive proceeds therefrom without procuring a state gaming license, revising the definition of gaming employee, revising provisions relating to delinquent debt owed to the board that is determined to be impossible or impracticable to collect, revising provisions concerning the general powers and duties of the board and the Nevada Gaming Commission, authorizing persons aggrieved by final decisions or orders of the Commission relating to disciplinary matters to obtain a judicial review of a decision or order in the District Court in and for Carson City, providing that any person authorized to receive a share of the revenue from a slot machine operated on the premises of a gaming licensee is liable for his or her proportionate share of a license fee for the slot machines, including additional fees for which prepayment credit may be granted with regard to continuing operations, authorizing the Commission to adopt certain regulations defining the scope of power and authority of the Board and Commission relating to hosting centers, interactive gaming service providers, and service providers, exempting persons who accept employment or an independent contract with the Commission as a commissioner appointed by the governor from certain provisions of law governing the employment of retired public employees, and providing other matters appropriately thereto. The people stated that are represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 12, end of Section 12, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The Chief Clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 34, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to legal services, authorizing the Attorney General or the Chief Legal Officer or other authorized representative of a political subdivision of the state to provide legal representation to certain officers or employees of the state or a political subdivision thereof in certain actions or proceedings, revising provisions relating to special counsel employed by the Attorney General, revising provisions governing the legal representation of certain persons by the Attorney General, and providing other matters appropriately thereto. The people stated Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 5, end of Section 5, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The Chief Clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 61, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to crimes providing that the holding of an account in joint tenancy does not in and of itself convey to the person named on the account legal ownership of the account and the deposits and proceeds of the account in a manner that would preclude such a person from committing or being prosecuted for exploitation involving the control or conversion of any deposits or proceeds of the account, and providing other matters managed properly thereto, the people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 6, end of Section 6, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There were 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declare it passed and order transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 63, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to the Judicial Department of State Government, making various changes relating to the policies and procedures of the Judicial Department, authorizing a judge to hold court by means of remote communication in certain circumstances, requiring the Nevada Supreme Court to prescribe certain policies and procedures relating to the Judicial Department by rule, authorizing a judge or justice of the peace to have a partner or associate who practices law in the state under certain circumstances, revising the duties of the court administrator, replacing the term regulation with rule for purposes of certain provisions of law relating to the Judicial Department, codifying in statute language from the Nevada Constitution relating to the expiration of the term of office for a justice appointed to fill a vacancy on the Nevada Supreme Court, revising provisions concerning the provision of certain resources to the Supreme Court and the district courts, providing that certain orders for protection issued in another state are not subject to certain requirements to be given full faith and credit in the state, repealing obsolete provisions relating to the Judicial Department, repealing various provisions relating to court seals, qualifications of certain employees and reports, and providing other matters properly and thereto, the people's state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 38, end of Section 38, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There were 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declare it passed in order to transmit to the Senate.
Senate Bill 78, introduced by Senator Doñate, Assemblyman Gonzalez et al., an act relating to property, establishing and revising various definitions relating to property, establishing provisions relating to fees charged by landlords to prospective tenants, prohibiting landlords from transferring, selling, assigning, or reporting to certain agencies information concerning amounts owed by tenants to landlords, establishing provisions relating to circumstances under which a landlord changes his or her agent, broker, or property management company, requiring a rental agreement to include separate appendices that contain certain information, making it unlawful for a landlord or certain other persons to charge a tenant certain fees, making various changes relating to fees, fines, deposits, and costs paid by tenants, requiring rental agreements to include a grace period for the late payment of rent, requiring a tenant to be served with advance notice of increases in certain fees, fines, and costs, revising provisions relating to agents of attorneys who serve certain notices relating to evictions, revising provisions relating to representation in small claims actions, and providing other matters properly thereto, the people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 29, end of Section 29, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 28 ayes, 14 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declare it passed in order to transmit it to the Senate.
Senate Bill 81, introduced by Senator Daley, an act relating to regional planning, requiring representatives of certain counties and cities to meet jointly for a specified period to identify issues and make recommendations regarding the orderly management of growth in the region, requiring such representatives to prepare certain joint reports during that period and providing other matters properly thereto, the people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 28 ayes, 14 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declare it passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 172, introduced by Senators Harris et al., an act relating to healthcare, authorizing a minor to give express consent to certain healthcare providers for certain services for the prevention of sexually transmitted diseases and pregnancy, and providing other measures properly in thereto. The people stated that are represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 28 ayes, 14 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declare it passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 208, introduced by Senators Flores et al., an act relating to local governments requiring the governing body of a county or city to enact ordinances relating to battery charge fences and providing other measures properly in thereto. The people stated that are represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 4, end of Section 4, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, I declare it passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 249, introduced by Senators Lang et al., Assemblyman Nguyen, an act relating to cosmetology, revising provisions governing the scope of practice of certain persons licensed and regulated by the State Board of Cosmetology, establishing procedures to contest certain citations issued by the board, repealing or removing provisions which provide for the licensure and regulation by the Board of Demonstrators of Cosmetics and Establishments for Hair Braiding, revising the powers and duties of the board and the executive director of the board, requiring the board to adopt certain regulations, revising certain requirements for a person to obtain certain licenses and certificates of registration issued by the board, revising certain licensing fees, revising provisions concerning the issuance and renewal of certain licenses and certificates of registration issued by the board, revising provisions relating to cosmetological establishments and the schools of cosmetology, revising certain requirements relating to the supervision of certain apprentices, authorizing the board to issue certain citations and providing other matters properly in thereto. The people stated that are represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 65, end of Section 65, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a 2/3 constitutional majority, declare it passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 272, introduced by Senator Spearman et al., an act relating to governmental administration requiring a state agency or local government to post certain information on its internet website relating to certain purchasing contracts, performance contracts, and contracts for public works, and providing other matters properly in thereto. The people stated that are represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 5, end of Section 5, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 28 ayes, 14 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, I declare it passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 289, introduced by Senator Nguyen, an act relating to crimes expanding the applicability of enhanced penalties for assault or battery against a provider of health care under certain circumstances, providing penalties and providing other matters properly in thereto. The people stated that are represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There were 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 292, introduced by Senator Pacina, an act relating to education, providing that certain principals are employed at will and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 12, end of Section 12, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 39 ayes, 3 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 309, introduced by Senators Canizaro et al., an act relating to crimes establishing the crime of fertility fraud, creating a cause of action for a person who has suffered injury as a result of fertility fraud, providing that certain acts that constitute fertility fraud are subject to various statutory provisions relating to sex offenders, prohibiting a healthcare facility from taking certain actions relating to assisted reproduction, authorizing the imposition of civil penalties for certain violations committed by a healthcare facility, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 22, end of Section 22, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 331, introduced by Senator Scheibel, an act relating to emergency management, requiring certain emergency management plans to include certain information related to the evacuation, transport, and shelter of persons with pets, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 334, introduced by Senator Spearman et al., an act relating to energy, authorizing an energy storage system that retains, stores, and delivers energy through a system that uses only green hydrogen for the purposes of meeting certain biennial storage targets and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 3, end of Section 3, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 346, introduced by Senator Spearman, an act relating to motor vehicles, authorizing certain acts and transactions to be conducted through an electronic branch office established by the Department of Motor Vehicles, revising requirements relating to certificates of registration and certificates of title of a vehicle, eliminating certain limitations on the persons authorized to participate in a program established by the department for the electronic submission and storage of documents, requiring the department to design, prepare, and issue special license plates for all vehicles that are wholly powered by an electric motor, and reducing the fees for those special license plates, authorizing the use of electronic signatures and stamps for recording certain information for certain transactions, prohibiting a person from driving an autocycle upon a highway unless that person holds a driver's license, exempting the driver and passengers of an autocycle from the requirement to wear protective headgear, revising requirements for a person to be appointed to issue salvage titles on behalf of the department, and providing other matters properly relating thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 6, end of Section 6, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 355, introduced by Senators Lang and Hammond, an act relating to financial services, prohibiting the Commissioner of Financial Institutions from requiring an applicant for a license to establish a new depository institution to identify the physical address of the proposed depository institution in the application for the license, authorizing certain persons employed by financial institutions to temporarily delay certain financial transactions involving the suspected exploitation of an older person or vulnerable person, exempting certain persons from liability for certain actions relating to the suspected exploitation of an older person or vulnerable person, authorizing the employee of a person licensed to engage in the business of lending in the state to perform certain work from a remote location under certain circumstances, setting forth various requirements concerning such work performed at a remote location, requiring a person licensed to engage in the business of lending in the state to provide notice to the Attorney General and certain other persons of certain breaches of security involving personal information, revising the circumstances under which a person is not required to accept an acknowledged power of attorney and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1. Section 18, end of Section 18, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 363, introduced by Senators Spearman, Nadal, Assemblyman De Silva, an act relating to affordable housing, authorizing the Housing Division of the Department of Business and Industry to prioritize funding for projects related to affordable housing that give preference to certain persons and providing other matters properly laid thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 29 ayes, 13 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 378, introduced by Senators Canizaro and Stone, an act relating to common interest communities, revising the type of documents that are required to be made available on the Internet website or within the electronic portal that is required to be established and maintained by certain unit owners associations, setting forth certain requirements for an Internet website or electronic portal that provides the ability for a unit's owner to make certain payments electronically, revising requirements concerning the provision of certain notices by an association, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 6, end of Section 6, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 386, introduced by the Committee on Commerce and Labor, an act relating to barbering, authorizing an applicant for a license as a barber or apprentice who fails to pass the examination required for licensure to retake the examination without fulfilling any additional requirements under certain circumstances and providing other matters properly laid thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1. Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 404, introduced by the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, an act relating to elections revising provisions relating to the challenge of a person applying to vote, authorizing the county or city clerk to order that the count of returns for early voting begin on or after the first day of early voting, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1. 1, Section 71, end of Section 71, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 28 ayes, 14 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, I declare it passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 407, introduced by Senator Orenshaw, an act relating to personal financial administration, revising provisions that govern estates of deceased persons, revising provisions governing the notice of sale of certain property, authorizing a petitioner to submit a notice through an electronic filing system pursuant to the Nevada Electronic Filing and Conversion Rules, making certain information concerning trust confidential, revising provisions governing the classification of distribution of assets, revising the powers exercisable by the protector of a trust, revising provisions relating to the jurisdiction and venue of a trust, clarifying provisions relating to a notice provided by the trustee, and providing other measures properly thereto. The people stand that are represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 19, end of Section 19, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declared passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 415, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to juvenile justice, setting forth the circumstances in which a juvenile court may place a child on probation, limiting the period of time during which a juvenile court may place a child on probation, authorizing under certain circumstances a juvenile court to extend the probation of a child, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada are represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 2, end of Section 2, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declare it passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 417, introduced by the Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to common interest communities, revising provisions relating to the requirement that the executive board of a unit owners association make certain records available for review at a designated location, authorizing the Commission for Common Interest Communities and Condominium Hotels or a hearing panel to impose certain sanctions on a person who files certain affidavits with the Real Estate Division of the Department of Business and Industry, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 5, end of Section 5, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declare it passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 422, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act relating to public safety, establishing provisions governing the operation of a personal delivery device, imposing certain requirements on a personal delivery device operator, providing a civil penalty, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 11, end of Section 11, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declare it passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate.
Senate Bill 423, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act relating to motorcycles, revising provisions relating to penalties for driving without a motorcycle driver's license, motorcycle endorsement or permit to operate a motorcycle, revising certain requirements for instructors for the program for the education of motorcycle riders, and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section Section 1, Section 7, end of Section 7, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Seeing no remarks, the chief clerk will open the roll. Would anyone like to change their vote? The chief clerk will record the vote. There are 42 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, declare it passed and ordered transmitted to the Senate. Assemblywoman Howdege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that all remaining bills on general file be placed on the general file of the next legislative day.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. We will go back to order of business 4, reports of standing committees.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Ways and Means, to which was re-referred Assembly Bill 112, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back to the recommendation and do pass as amended. Daniel Monroe Moreno, Chair.
Order of business 11, second reading and amendment.
Cindy says it should be.
We will go to order of business 12, general file and third reading.
Assembly Bill 112, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act related to wildlife, defining the term wildlife for the purposes of wildlife crossings, creating the wildlife crossings account in the State General Fund, requiring the Director of the Department of Transportation to administer the account, requiring the Department of Transportation in consultation with the Department of Wildlife to develop and publish an inventory and list of certain projects relating to wildlife crossings, requiring the Director of the Department of Transportation to review the standards and specifications for the design and construction of highways in the state to determine the standards and specifications necessary for incorporating wildlife crossings and related highway features into the highways of the state, requiring the Department of Transportation and the Department of Wildlife to consult with certain persons regarding locations for wildlife crossings and related highway features, authorizing the Director of the Department of Transportation to adopt regulations making an appropriation to implement projects relating to wildlife crossings and providing other matters properly thereto. The people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate and Assembly do enact as follows: Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 7, end of Section 7, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
I have Amendment 723 proposed by the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for the adoption of Amendment 723 to Assembly Bill 112.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno has moved for the adoption of amendment number 723 to Assembly Bill 112. Any remarks?
The amendment changes the appropriated amount in the bill.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting amendment number 723 to Assembly Bill 112 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill?
There are none.
The bill is ordered reprinted, engrossed into general file. That will take us back to order business 15, remarks from the floor. Would anyone like to give remarks from the floor? Assemblywoman Howdege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Seeing no other business before us, I enthusiastically move that we adjourn until Thursday, May 25th at the hour of 11:30 a.m.
Assemblywoman Howdege has moved that the Assembly stand adjourn until Thursday, May 25th, 2023 at the hour of 11:30 a.m. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Ways Committee members, we will go back into committee meeting at 4:30.
Natural Resources members, please go immediately to the room.